This video is going to be a little shorter than our previous histogram video, and it's just going to quickly go through how I could have made a histogram in Desmos instead of using Google Sheets. So we've already gone over some of the basics of what is a histogram and why it makes it and which data sets to use. So I'm going to use the presidential height in centimeters. Now, just like with our previous one, I actually in Google Sheets am going to do the sorting just because that makes it a little easier once I get to Desmos. So we have a low of 163 and a high, and I'm just going to scroll to the bottom of my data set, of 193. Now, next step, we need to select all of our data, but this time we need to be a little more careful, and you actually want to hold and sort of drag because we don't want the extra point space. We just want the numbers. And so I'm going to copy this. So Control C because I'm on a PC. And then I'm going to go over to Desmos. And the thing is if you've copied a set of data and you're on a computer, you can just paste it right into Desmos. And so I'm going to Control V. And notice I have a 46 element list. That basically means I have 46 numbers in this group, which is exactly what I want. There are 46 presidents. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. So I hit home and I'm going to name this set. I'm going to call it A. And the only reason I like to give it a variable name is now when I want to do statistical calculations with it, I don't need to retype anything. I just can hit the letter A. So now we want to create our histogram. We can actually type the words histogram and it sort of pops up. But if you don't remember that that's the shortcut, if we go to our functions menu, we're going to find, if we scroll down, we got all of our statistical calculations, which we're going to get to next week. Oops, we want those functions back. And then you'll notice visualizations, and we have histogram, dot plot, and box plot. We're going to be coming back to box plot next week also, but we want the histogram for now. Oops, and I put it in the wrong spot. So make sure your cursor's in the right spot and then hit the thing, hit the button for histograms. I'm just making a mess today. All right, now you'll notice Desmos gives you hints of what you need to do next. It says dataset, comma, bin width. Well, I know my data set is A. And if I do nothing else, it's going to default a bin width of 1. But just to give you a sense of what that looks like, I hit that little magnifying glass in the corner, and you'll notice having a bin set width of 1 doesn't really give me much. I don't find that very helpful. So we want to find an actual bin width. Plus, we were asked to create a histogram with 8 bins. So remember, step 1 is we need to find the range. So in order to find the range, we take the high number and low number. Now, our high number and low number was 193 and 165. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes I like to round to like nicer values while doing this. So I'm actually going to round it up to 195 and down to 160. And so that gives me 35. Which I look at and I go, well, it doesn't really go into that evenly. So I could add a little more if I wanted to. I sometimes go, I don't really like to go too far off from the actual range because then you're sort of adding in things to the side. So maybe I'm going to actually say, 62 here, and I'll make this 94. And so now I have a range of 32. And I only did that because now if I take that value and I divide it by 8, I get a bin size of 4, which might be a little nicer than what I would have had otherwise. And so now I replace that with 4. And you'll notice, ooh, my bars are a little nicer. I like them a little better. Now we want count. Count's good. Relative and density are more when we're dealing with probabilities and percentages, and we don't, if we had bigger sets of numbers, maybe we'd want those, but for our set, count is fine. And we actually want to align our bins to the left. And that basically just is sort of, instead of, being in the center, we're sort of the edge, and it's sort of which section things got into. And you'll notice it changed what our bins looked like, especially right here on the low end. I can now sort of more clearly see an outlier, and we're typically going to want our bin alignment to be left. All right, next step, we want to label some axes. So I love the zoom feature, it gives me a nice zoom. But if we go up to the little wrench in the corner, we can give our axes some labels. So remember the x-axis in this case, we are looking at heights of president, or I should say U.S. presidents. We are in centimeters. And then our y-axis we're going to label frequency. Oops, and I spelled frequency wrong. So we're going to fix that. You know, and you could also, you know, make the text bigger. Sometimes I like doing that just because if I have to screenshot, I'm going to get a better screenshot. Now, unlike Google Sheets, I can't just copy and paste the image into my, you know, assignment. I'm going to actually have to take a screenshot of this graph. And so, you know, you can Windows key shift, or, you know, it's different on each type of computer. On my PC, it's the Windows key shift and S, and I can sort of select the piece of the screen I want, and then I can paste it. That is one option. Desmos does have an option to download, oops, and I obviously didn't take a picture of anything, download the graph, and it's this share the graph button, and you could choose to export the image. And then you sort of get a choice of like, you know, what size do you want? Do you want a small square? Probably not. Do you want a big square? You know, and you can sort of pick and choose. You know, I might actually do a rectangle with this one. I don't know. You know, you can sort of play around till you see the picture you like. And then it downloads, and then you could embed that way. So there's a few different options on how to transfer your graph out of Desmos into the program you want. But again, the real key in here is copying the data set in from Google Sheets and then that histogram button. Hopefully this helps you with how to create a histogram when using Desmos instead of Google Sheets. Now it's sort of up to you and what strategy you would prefer to use.